Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Communications World Headquarters. This is Wake Up Missouri with Stephanie Bell, the Zimmer News Team, and your host, Randy Tobler.
Authorized spending, deemed DOGE cuts, is less than DOGE had found to cut.
Are we going to see further rescission packages that will claw back this money?
Perhaps. We are very anxious to see the reception from a vote standpoint in the House and the Senate.
Republicans, including Steve Womack, also had some other concerns.
Well, that's the discussion going on about the big, beautiful budget bill in D.C., but the big news yesterday in Missouri, as we opened today's, finally the sun is shining, Wake Up Missouri, was that several things got done yesterday, Stephanie Bell. I can't believe it. I mean, but they were, are they just wiping the sleep out of their eyes now? Did they get to bed at 5 a.m. or something for it?
I think so. I don't know exactly what time they gavelled out, but it was their own fault because I don't think they were set to gavel in at 10 a.m. and I think they gavelled in at like 5:15 p.m. So a
lot of horse trading going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, there was a lot of work to be done. I think the stadium bill ultimately ended up with one or two substitutes. What that means is when they come to the floor, they offer an entirely new bill. Now, generally, it's like the same bill, but it's got some pretty big changes. So, there's a lot of people in the background that have to, write those bills, do the math, all of those different kinds of things. So what came to the floor, so they go in at 5:15. What came to the floor first was Senator Huff's like HB 19 new version or whatever, right? The capital improvements spending bill. That took about 5 minutes.
That passed?
Yes.
So does that mean... Boy, welcome in, Wake Up Missouri. If you're as confused as I am, we're going to try to help unpack this for you, but I'm not sure we even can. John Marsh, Stephanie Bell, Drake Whitman. So the governor, he expanded the scope of the session.
I skipped that step. So they were supposed to gavel in at 10, sometime in the afternoon.
Right.
The governor expanded the call to include property tax relief, which the Freedom Caucus had said they had to have the stadium vote. So this, and again, special session is quote unquote special, so you can only do what's in the call.
So what did he expand it to then?
He was going to, the Freedom folks had said they wanted some sort of tax relief. So the expansion of the call had property tax relief in it. So then they head to the floor, they get the capital improvements bill done in like a minute. I think it was like 10 minutes. And then they go to the stadiums, and that one looked like it was in a bad place for a bit. They were scrambling. Clearly, there was still more negotiating going on in the background. And ultimately, that one ended up passing. So it looks like with the capital improvements bill, it looks like there was an increase to the disaster fund.
The nuclear reactor.
Mizzou got its full $50 million.
Went from 25 to 50.
That's right. And
what about all these like rural hospitals? Because and all of the how many projects were there in the? In the original HB 19, it was like the yellow pages. There was bill after bill, spending, parking lots. I
believe the price tag on the original one was something like $500 million. It was smaller in the call, but what I'm reading this morning is that the capital projects in HB 19, which includes the $50 million for the reactor, was about $360 million.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the still of the night, your legislature took and passed a bill that no one knows what's in it until you pass it. Sounds like they know.
They know what's in it. I didn't wake up at 4 a.m. and read, 100 pages of bills. We're going to get more. I think the other interesting thing is the vote. And so we were talking, there was like three groups, the, regular Republicans, the Freedom people who said they must, we're trying to extract some sort of deal. Right?
What is a regular Republican?
I think
Stephanie Bell will now get into her Webster dictionary of political definitions. What's a regular Republican? A non-Freedom Caucus Republican?
Yeah.
A moderate?
They're not all moderates. I think some of them are pretty conservative.
They're just not Freedom Caucus.
If Cindy O'Loughlin's crowd, right?
They go by a lot of different names. If you're a Freedom Caucuser, you probably call them a rhino or establishment or whatever, and they probably, is whatever.
Yeah, swamp creatures if you're a Freedom Caucus, but regular Republicans if you're most people in the Senate.
So the vote,
they're the majority in the Senate.
Right. Then you had the Democrats.
Yes.
And we had talked to a lot of them this week about how they wanted something.
Yeah.
So it turns out 2 of the Freedom Caucus members did. It looks like they got their property tax, which is confusing to me. They still voted no on the stadiums, apparently. 2 Freedom Caucus members voted yes on stadiums. The rest were, and 2 were no's. 7 Democrats voted for the stadium bill. 3 were no's. So the stadium vote ended up 19-13. We had 1 absent and 1 Tony Luetkemeyer recused.
Did that require a simple majority, or do they have to come up with 18 or more on that vote? Does a simple majority do it, or does it need? They have to. I think they have to have. They have to have 18 for a quorum.
Yeah, they have to have 18, right?
I think. That's right.
So this is very interesting. Stephen Weber got his money. That's the ticket. You call our guest yesterday, Senator Fitzwater, a coward, and you get $25 million more for your reactor. That's a new tactic. What do you think, John Marsh? That'll go.
If it works, right?
Yeah. Now call a fellow senator a coward, you get what you want. Good tactic. That works well.
Well, now the House gets into the mix, right, Steph?
Now the House, right?
Yeah, and so on the 18 vote, is that right? There's 34 senators. Is that right? 34 senators. Mathing is hard this morning. So you need 17 for a majority. So you have to have 18.
Okay, so you have to have that. What happened on property taxes, though? We the people, instead of making billionaires richer, we the people actually got a property tax. Was there some kind of property tax
relief? There is, except Jackson County, I think, got excluded.
Well, they should. We're giving them a stadium.
The tax relief would allow counties to give tax credits for increases in property taxes, I believe.
Well, as you can tell, ladies and gentlemen, the business of making legislation is a messy, sometimes stinky business politically.
Well, and the thing with the governor adding the 14 topics, if you get into the weeds on the topics that the governor added, they weren't really that much new stuff,
right?
But it was a whole bunch of other opportunities, especially to come up with different entities to throw in on the storm damage relief funds, and that's what he kind of elaborated on from an economic side.
Was that different?
Put that up.
So did they sweeten? So basically, ladies and gentlemen, what we're having is here. You take a lot of government spending, take your money, and then give it to various entities and the politicians who represent them with a lot of horse trading. And, I'll give you a Babe Ruth card if you'll give me a Lou Gehrig and a Ken Boyer. And at the end of the day, more of our tax money goes to a few special interests that, and then we get a very little bit in return. We get a nuclear reactor, which may help you if you got a sickness or if you.
And I don't know. I will be digging in this morning, like what other mid-Missouri and Springfield projects. The other interesting news out of the State House yesterday, I think, was Alex Riley declared that he's going to run for Speaker of the House. Of course, he's from the Springfield area. That's a very powerful position.
Oh yeah.
Alex is really well thought of too.
He really is, and I think he's done an excellent job this year. And I think
Speaker Patterson had his reputation tarnished, I think, with what happened with HB 19 when it didn't even get brought up for a vote. Don't you think that hurt him?
Well, that's on the back. I mean, Alex Riley certainly would have known about that as well. I think Speaker Patterson had all sorts of stuff in the interim because there was the leadership race between member Justin Sparks ran against him, and there was a whole bunch of stuff going on with that. So, no, I think in general, Alex Riley enjoys a lot of respect from his colleagues.
Well, I should put it differently. Maybe Speaker Patterson took a political hit with that maneuver because the House in general didn't come across looking real special when they didn't even bring that spending bill up for a vote.
Well, and they still have an opportunity to mess it all up. And so this is
well put.
This is an interesting. So most of the time when you get on the Senate webpage, you can see it just says they've adjourned under the rules, right? And maybe they'll come back in another time. The adjournment announcement on their page says they have adjourned and will convene at 1 p.m. on Monday, June 16th, provided that the House adopt SCR 1, or should the House fail to adopt SCR 1, the Senate will convene 10 a.m. Wednesday, June 11th. We're going to have to dissect that too.
So they're hoping.
And a majority in the Senate from one of our texters is 18 out of the 34.
Yeah, right. We just went through that.
Yeah, so I'm still, how come the minority of our conversation, I've been timing it and allotting various time to the various elements of our conversation. most of the elements of our conversation, the vast majority have been how our tax money is going to various entities because, back and forth horse trading. Where are we getting relief on property taxes, which is a big issue for many of the listeners in Wake Up Missouri? It's a big issue to a lot of us. Why do I have to pay to rent my stuff when I already paid the
You
double
mean personal
taxation?
property taxes?
I don't know. It just
No, this is your
real
home.
property.
The thing that Nicola was really mad about was that apparently, especially in a lot of parts of the state, that your real property taxes have been going up.
Why
quite a
did
bit.
my assessment? We get a notice from the
That's
Boone
what he was
County
mad about,
assessor.
yeah.
What the heck? John, did you get that stuff? No, you're not in Boone. Are you in Boone County? Yes,
Yeah.
you are. Did you get an assessment from our friend at the assessor's office?
I have no idea.
I thought that the housing market was going down. I thought, things have moderated. Prices are down. My Zillow price on my house is not. It went down from last year to this year. Because, it did. So why is my assessment going up? If you're listening, Mr. Assessor, would you let me know? Anyone else out there? Did your assessment go up? What the heck? The market is apparently flat and it's stagnant and you can't if selling a house is hard. Not that I want to sell my house, but why do they keep raising the assessment when the Zillow value goes down? I don't understand this. If you're a realtor out there, let me know. 573-874-9390. That's the text line. You can tell that we're having a tough time figuring out what the heck happened because it happened in the wee hours of the morning when we were getting our beauty sleep. And that's the legislators weren't. But they passed the Senate bills, but that doesn't mean the House is going to buy it, right? So we'll have to see. If the House buys it, the Senate will come in and done, right? Quick, done. But otherwise, when the House modifies it, then the Senate will have to start back in more trade. I got a feeling.
But you think the House already passed the stadium bill?
Yeah, but not the House. See, everyone agrees on the stadium. Here we go. More money for rich guys. And for the people that live in KC, God love you. But the spending bills for the courthouse that's falling down, the hospital whose beds are falling apart and the walls are tumbling, where's that? That's going to be the result of back and forth, right? Am I right, John?
Potentially.
And
It's not a done deal till it's a done deal.
Karen says assessment up. Yep. All right. Well,
tell us by what percent.
Lance says F the stadiums. Whoa.
That's a little spicy for 6 a.m.
Welcome to the spicy Wake Up Missouri edition. When we come back, lots going on in D.C. Stephanie will cover that.
You're listening to Wake Up Missouri.
Coming out this fall called Independent. It's coming out on October 21st, so please do grab it. And the reason I wrote this book, coming out of the White House, serving as White House press secretary was an honor and a privilege. But since I have left, the people that come up to me, strangers that come up to me just across the country as I'm traveling, and sometimes right in my neighborhood, at a grocery store, supermarket, airport, my daughter's school, the number one question they ask me is, Corrine, how do we get out of this?
She's back. Here's Stephanie Bell with the Daily DC Rundown.
And people are coming to her because she's just the expert, right? Now, she's taking a lot of grief. Democrats are not happy. What'd she say? She's now an independent.
The name of her book is Independent, coming out in October.
And apparently she has been making a media play since before she left the White House and wanted to be, an influencer, author, media star, something. So,
do you write a 300-page book in the time between January and now? No. She's been working on this.
They don't write these things anyway, Randy. They pay someone else to write these things.
The question is, the subtitle is something about, behind the broken White House or something, behind the scenes. So is she going to go after Biden, his handlers? We don't know. But what a grifter.
After hearing her behind that podium for so long, Randy, you have any interest in reading her book?
You want to hear more word salad?
How do we protect our democracy? How do we protect vulnerable communities among us? What do we do next? Because we don't have answers here. That's what they ask me. And this is my answer. And what I mean by that is, in an era of misinformation, disinformation, the regressiveness of social policy, what we're seeing currently right now,
it's bad.
It is bad. A lot of people also think that the big beautiful bill is bad. According to the CBO, it would add $2.4 trillion to U.S. debts. Of course, Caroline Leavitt was coming out criticizing the CBO, saying they were all, I think, liberals yesterday as well. So there's lots of debate about what that final number is. Also, still a lot of debate in the Senate about some of the changes that were made by the House. Of course, there was that SALT caucus. They increased the SALT cap. Not all Senate Republicans are on board for that. They're trying to find a way to bring that, bottom line number down. The other thing they're talking about is Medicaid cuts. Now, Josh Hawley has said, we're not going to cut Medicaid, but now they're kind of talking about, let's find ways to cut out waste, fraud, and abuse. Apparently, the House Republicans had made a pretty substantial cut. It would cut $800 billion from Medicaid, and putting in different requirements and all of that. GOP lawmakers are now saying, hey, let's look at other programs like Medicare that should be reviewed for waste, fraud, and abuse. So that could reduce the cost of the bill overall. So we are continuing to watch that, but there is still a lot of disagreement, and we are creeping up now less than a month away from that self-imposed July 4th deadline, or Trump-imposed July 4th deadline. The other thing to know, yesterday, Trump banned 12 countries' citizens from entering the U.S. This is on the heels of that story we talked about, Randy, with the two Chinese nationals trying to bring in fungus weapons.
Fungus among us.
And so if you are from Afghanistan, Burma, Chad, Republic of Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Haiti, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Yemen.
Cuba even, I think, limited access, I think.
Maybe.
But because why? Because we can't vet the people coming from there. That's what he alleges.
I think that's right.
Which is probably true.
That is right. Also, Putin has vowed to retaliate based on Ukraine's drone strikes. So we will be hearing more about that.
We'll be talking with Steve Bucci about that at 8:08.
And Trump, I believe, is meeting with the German chancellor today at the White House.
Oh, yeah. Be good. Have some schnitzel. And the war.
There you go.
All right, more coming up on Wake Up Missouri. We got to figure out this property tax thing.
Has America been fair to Donald Trump? The people always know what's going on.
Welcome back into Wake Up Missouri. We're looking at the specifics of the governor's expanded call, which I assume much of which got into the legislation that was passed yesterday that will affect many of our lives. There's a lot of talk in here. John Marsh, Stephanie Bell, and me, we're furious. This is like election night. We're trying to this all happened very, very late. Actually, in the wee hours of the morning, everything got passed. Well, that's
by
funny.
the senators on their side.
By the senators. And, of course, the spending bill, what bothers me is the stadium bill, which is controversial. I think anyone even who supports it admits it's controversial. We talked with Senator Laughlin. We talked with the governor. And, yeah, they recognize there's pros and cons, but they come down on the side of pro, and let's do it. But the senators apparently, at least, 18 of them? Was it 18 to
19?
19 to 16, something like that. Yeah. Think that it's good. And that passed like, okay, we got to have stadiums. But then they bargained over this stuff for like till early in the morning.
No. So
I thought the stadium passed early. No,
the thing that
the
passed
spending
early
passed
was
early.
the capital improvements
I got it reversed.
bill.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the spending bill passed early.
And it's a trimmed down spending bill from what was originally in HB 19.
And I guess there were some Senator Gregory, I guess,
handled the stadium.
Was arguing he sponsored the stadium bill. But a lot of what happened was he wanted property tax relief, correct, as part of that package or something?
Senator
Nicola did.
Yeah. And the other Freedom Caucus members.
So as we're reading through this, it looks like they want to put some brakes on the increase in your assessments. That's one of the bottom line items.
And that's in the stadium package. I'm looking at it now.
Well, wherever it happened, the Senate passed basically putting a 5% cap for the 2025 year on an increase in real property assessment. That's one thing I saw. They also want to enact legislation that when the State Tax Commission, which is where I think my letter of an assessment increase from Boone County Assessor Kenny Moore, who I've reached out to, I hope Kenny will come on, they basically said, hey, Pontius Pilate, not me, and I'm sort of having fun with that, but basically, they said the State Tax Commission ordered them to do this, to raise our assessment inordinately. But now, in the expanded call, I don't know if it made it into the legislation. They wanted to say that there should be judicial review. This is what the governor wanted. When the State Tax Commission issues an order requiring a county to equalize or modify assessments, which was, I think, what my letter from Boone County said. Like, Randy, even though your Zillow valuation went down, we in the State Tax Commission think your assessment should go up because unelected officials in the State Tax Commission know best. Isn't that great? Don't you love it when unelected officials can do that? It's great. And then they've got, tax credits for sporting events. What does that mean? That was in his call.
That's part of the stadium stuff, I think.
Enact legislation, economic development for athletic. Well, no, that's different. No, number 11 is modifying tax credits for sporting events. And 12 is enact economic development incentives for facility projects of professional sports franchises. Wow. This is a tough one. And of course, now I think that once in a while, Wake Up family members, you text us some very profound things. It was a 19-13 vote, sorry. 573-874-9390. Listener Derek says something very, very profound. I want you all to listen up here. As romantic society was collapsing, they still had their games at the Coliseums.
That's good.
That's a good one, isn't it? I mean, Roman civilization was collapsing and imploding on itself, but we still had gladiators at the Coliseum.
Randy, I mean, I still need to get through
Derek, that's a good one.
All of the details. You think the world is ending.
I don't think the world's ending. I just think we have our values misplaced.
Well, you weren't against the capital improvements bill, were you?
Yes, some parts of it. One thing I don't like, the Constitution needs to be changed. They need to stop this tomfoolery with, we're going to allow $20 million for a city with a population greater than 2 million, but less than 1,999,999. And we're going to, Come on, I want to know who's getting what money clearly, so I, as
research.
a taxpayer,
You put that into,
excuse me, do a research.
You put that into the Google, and it will tell you straight away.
I don't
who
have
that
the Google.
is.
I'm trying to save lives in our practice. I don't have time to worry about this. I want my representatives to tell me what the heck my money is being spent for. That's
well, then
all.
pick up the phone and ask them.
Oh, yeah, right. Try to do that.
They'll tell you. So you got the capital improvements bill, you got the stadium bill, and so you would think you wanted $0 for stadiums.
I just, if Kansas City people want a stadium, let them pay for a stadium. Good for them.
They voted no.
God love them. I mean, why should I pay for? I like the Chiefs. I could watch the Chiefs if they're in Lawrence, Kansas, or if they're in, Jalisco, Mexico. If I like the Chiefs, I prefer a good. I love when the Chiefs win. But I don't worship at the altar of professional sports. It doesn't affect my life.
I don't think that's why people voted for it. And then I don't think people voted for the stadium bill because they worship at the altar of the Chiefs. Randy disagrees.
I think Tom Kruckmeyer, the former chief economist who was on with it, nailed it on the money and said the governor and the rest of the folks don't want to be the one to be looked at by history down the road as the guys who lost the Chiefs and or Royals out of Missouri.
And additionally, I think that was Scott Fawn's perspective when he was on Monday saying, Mike Kehoe's a good businessman, a better businessman than me. He was referencing himself. I would say the same thing. And if he's reviewed this package and says it's good for the state, like, who am I to question that, right? And I think so. And Scott said Mike Kehoe's a winner. He's going to find a way to get this thing done. And so I think at the, when all the dust settles, he found a way to get it done. I mean,
Emmett, our
pretty
friend,
remarkable.
Oh, look, that's fine. It's not the biggest deal in the world, but I just think when you have such fundamental problems in society these days with public safety and other things.
We got the public safety bill done first, Randy.
We're still reporting on shootings. I don't see public safety happening.
Well, Trump is fixing the border and fixing the economy. You don't like.
What about the potholes that are ruining my suspension at Lamone and Grindstone and 63 and everywhere else?
Not all of those are MoDOT potholes. Many of those are local potholes.
Oh, no, Columbia has washed their hands of that one. They say that's a MoDOT thing. Come on.
It depends.
Come on.
Where it is.
I caught you on that one. I don't know. I just think that we have fundamental societal issues. We can't get mental health services for people. People don't have access to health care like they should have. The People's University.
There's money in that appropriations bill for a mental health hospital, Randy.
The People's University, Missouri. Yeah, right. 5 years from now. But you don't need a new mental health care inpatient facility for mental health outpatient services, right? The People's University.
But you're making our very point because everyone wants my thing. And so you don't like the Chiefs and you're whining over that, but you're like, but I'm a doctor and I want health care.
I'm not
you're making the point of everyone wants their thing.
No, as a citizen, I don't give mental health care. I don't give mental health. I do.
It's still your field.
What are you talking about here? I don't get it. You don't think that the population needs better access to mental health care?
Oh, I think they do.
You don't think that our People's University, the Missouri University, has departments? The People's University, hear me on this. This is a dirty little secret, and I love you guys at MU Healthcare, but shame on you. They have departments that if you try to get a specialty thing done at certain departments at MU Healthcare at the University of Missouri in Columbia, you only can get into that specialty if your primary care doctor is a doctor with MU Healthcare.
That's everywhere.
At the People's University Healthcare.
That's
hello.
Like every healthcare.
No, that's not true.
It's a lot of them.
Well, shame on them, but they're not funded by the people of the state of Missouri.
Well, Mike Moon didn't like the money for the research reactor, if that's any consolation.
He doesn't like much.
He said the university should go after their own budget.
Angela says the teams won't even give a good faith commitment to stay in Missouri. That's a red flag. I think they need to go. If they don't respect Missouri's passion for the teams, they don't. It does seem like a bit of a one-way streetness going on here.
Well, and if you support that idea, then you're left with what they're left with in St. Louis since the mid-2010s, where the Dome at America Center has a minor league football team, and that's it playing there.
Victor, watch out. You're at risk of being one of the losers of the week. Victor texts, call him out, Stephanie.
Well, and I'm also a realist. Like, I think, we have to the state has to have a balanced budget. We have to make some tough decisions, right? And there are a lot of tough decisions to be made, and we can't pay for everything.
But wait a minute, Corey says, Stephanie, you're spot on. I think we should stop funding the university until they get their act together. Everyone's all in favor of the university, but they're hurting us. I thought I said that.
You did say that.
Why did you get... Corey, give credit where it's due here. You're always beating me up. Travis says, Randy, how much impact did St. Louis see after they lost the Rams? That was a team with a losing record.
And there was a financial settlement with all the entities involved where the Crockies had to ante up, pay some money back.
Yeah. Look, I think it's fine to have a stadium. That's wonderful. It's great. Have a stadium. But I really think we have other things that really should take priority. That's just my opinion as a citizen, not as a doc, just as a citizen. I mean, look at the road situation. Yeah, we got the big I-70 thing going on. There's some other repairs. How about the rural roads in this state? Gravel doesn't get, of course, I guess gravel is the county road part. I just think there's a lot of fundamental aspects of governance, public safety, infrastructure.
Didn't last year's budget have a ton of money in for rural roads?
Still got potholes at Grindstone and 63. Every time I turn on to 63,
well,
go to the
as a
office.
true Republican, mix up some of your favorite concrete and asphalt and get out there and
pull an Arnold Schwarzenegger and fix them yourself.
If the state pays for a new stadium, I want a new shop for my small business. Bam. Thank you. Thank you so much. Very good for you.
Well, maybe you can move it to Kansas and they'll help you out.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think of this KJP thing? I think we need to talk about this when we come back. KJP is out now, and it's. I want to know what y'all think of this trend of. I think it's maybe it's a human condition. It's a sad one. But it's about betrayal of those who you worked for. We seem to be seeing that now, right? Okay, we'll be back at 6:52 and talk about that.
This is Wake Up Missouri.
back at Wake Up Missouri, and we are figuring out that they passed a big spending bill, which was not the Senate did, not the big HB 19, but a trimmed down version of it. More disaster relief funding, tax credits, I guess up to $5,000 in the amount towards the deductible on repair of damage to people's homes. And I guess there's a total spending cap on that. So it's a first come, first served basis. That's, I think, good. There were a lot of improvements there. So that's good to see. The stadium funding bill got passed, and now we'll see what happens in the House, because the Senate's basically said, we've done our job. Now we're going to kick it back to the House. If you're just getting up with us, because, boy, ran late into the, wee hours of the morning. I'm Randy Tobler, Stephanie Bell, and there's John Marsh and Drake hanging out in the control room watching the women's college softball World Series, Game 1. Your favorite team, Texas, won. Or did Texas Tech win? I forget the Texas.
Texas won. Yeah. Texas Tech is very interesting. They are paying their pitcher over $1 million to play for them. So it's the biggest NIL transaction in softball history. They have kind of gotten really hot lately. Their pitcher has shut out some really big teams. They won against Oklahoma, who for the past 4 years has won the College World Series.
I see.
So they're like the dynasty. They're the best.
Okay.
And
how did Mizzou fare against any of these teams that are in the final final echelon?
Texas, I think, was the only number one team that we didn't get at least one win in the series.
Good.
So
so we're competitive.
Yeah. Somewhat. This was just an off year, I'd say. We're gonna have to get some people in the transfer portal.
Despite your body painting and revelry for the team.
Hey, look, I'm a realist. I'm going to paint my body and support them through anything. But
okay, so now, if and when you ever leave the show, Drake, would you do what Corinne Jean-Pierre has done? Would you write a book and talking about all of whatever little dirty laundry there may be on the show? There's very little of that. But, I mean, would you bash that? Would you write a book 3 months after leaving and say this?
I've already written one, Randy. It's in process.
Of social policy, what we're seeing currently right now, what I have decided to do, and I really have thought long and hard about this, is to follow my own compass.
All about me. It's all about me. Talk about me.
And that's what I've done. And that's what this book does. And here's the truth. And here's how I will lay it out to you. I think
She's a good one to be talking about the truth.
Need to stop thinking in boxes and think outside of our boxes and not.
She spent too much time with Kamala.
Funny. That's the first thing I thought. Exactly. It's like, man, that sounds like
does read like
salad.
it, doesn't it?
I think she needs to go back to her binder. She's looking into the Instagram camera here, and
be so partisan. And the way that I see moving forward in this space that we're in now.
That's the new term. In this space, like this ethereal. What is this space that we're in now? Isn't that funny? So she's got this book coming out in October. We're seeing more and more of this, people that are willing to just turn on former employers, which, I mean, I think, wouldn't it be more honorable if you discovered that Joe Biden was going downhill and his handlers and chief of staff and whatever advisors, Jill, was, oh, no, everything's fine, and you just go out there and keep telling it, KGP. Wouldn't the thing to do, if you had real integrity, is say, I can't be a part of it, I resign. Thank you very much. You guys go forward. Wouldn't that be the thing to do?
Yeah, and for me, in a job interview or just in general conversation, anyone who was to badmouth either their current employer in a serious way. I mean, we all kind of have joking coworkers like, oh, silly stuff.
Yeah.
But if you walk into a job interview and you get asked, why did you leave your former, job, and you're suddenly airing all of the dirty laundry or bad-mouthing them. Yeah. There are ways to say it it wasn't a good fit.
Yeah,
we had differences of opinion about the future of my role there. There are ways to say it where you get the message without bad-mouthing people. I mean, it's a red flag.
And then you see Jake Tapper write the book after he basically tried to get Laura Trump off the air when she was talking about that way back in 20. And now it's like, oh my God, what were they doing to us? You were part of the problem. That betrayal is just a terrible, terrible thing. Oh. Okay, we're waiting for more property tax assessment news when we come back. Stay tuned.
World Headquarters. This is Wake Up Missouri with Stephanie Bell, the Zimmer News Team, and your host, Randy Tobler.
I'd like to congratulate Democrats for ridding yourselves of this untalented mediocrity. I mean, this is the most self-aggrandizing liar that has ever held this job. The White House press secretary is a sacred position, and she stood up there for years and lied through her teeth to the American people.
Well, that's Scott Jennings talking about KJP. She's announced in an Instagram reel that, is that what they call it, an Instagram video, that she's coming out with a new book called Independent, and sort of about the broken White House, behind the scenes at the broken White House, which she was right in the middle of, as he said. And this is going to be interesting. Now they're coming out of the woodwork, all of those who defended the indefensible for so long. And we're trying to understand the defense of the stadium project, and we're getting some information more about the stadium bill that passed yesterday in the Missouri Senate. We're unpacking a little bit more about the House bill, I guess the skinnier version of HB 19, that capital spending bill that never made it to the House floor. So we'll see how that goes. I'm Randy Tobler. Stephanie Bell just ferociously going at trying to figure out what's in the bill and how do we explain this to everyone, because it is complicated. This legislation and how these things actually work, and the tax credits and whose money is paying for what, we got to be honest about it, right? And we have to unpack that. We're going to have Senator Curtis Gregory will be on tomorrow, I understand, right?
Yeah,
he just agreed to come on.
Sponsor and handler. He'll be joining us at 7:10, and obviously former Mizzou football player. Yeah. His district extends all the way over into parts of Kansas City and all the way over into Cooper County, so he's got a lot of folks. So I'm sure he's been
really a good dude.
Hearing a lot about this, yes, and can really dig down into the details of this package. I know, Randy, you were talking about what's this tax credit thing.
Well,
right?
yeah, I think people struggle with what do tax credits mean, not only for the entity, how do they work? What do they mean for the entity getting the credit? How does it work? But what does it mean for we, the taxpayers at large, right? Because they're often sold as, well, you know, people just, well, you explain how they work, and then we'll try to discuss the philosophy of it.
I'm not going to explain how tax credits work, but
I thought you knew.
No, I was going to, we were going to talk about this other provision in the bill not to do with the stadiums, which is, I think, the youth's, the amateur sports tax credit. Yes. And with respect to that, because we were like, what is that? Does that have to do with the stadiums? It does not. But it's apparently a program that's been around for a very long time, has been very successful. It was set to expire in 2025, but it's a program that helps us get like nationally recognized youth tournaments, big sporting events that draw a lot of people to Missouri. And it's been around for a while. They needed to renew that. That was lumped in with the same piece of legislation that the stadiums had.
Like if we had the Little League, the Corey League World Series, you know, in Springfield or something, right? That kind of an event. So the sponsors and the producers of that event could then apply to the state under this legislation.
I believe so.
And get a break on the taxes that otherwise would accrue, from maybe their concessions or something? I don't know. See, I want to know how these things work at the granular level.
That's why we're going to talk to Senator Gregory.
Senator Gregory is going to help. And, you know, the fact that Cindy O'Loughlin was behind the stadium, and when she was on with us, you know,
you and her are like besties.
She alluded on to, I'm very fond of Cindy because she was my senator when I was living up in Northeast Missouri, and just a stellar individual. And so is Curtis Gregory, and so is the governor. And so I think there may be more to the story than just like, a chunk of your income tax pays for the stadium every year. That's not happening.
How it's going. No, that's not how that works.
The question is, if money that would otherwise have gone to the general revenue for the common good, let's call it that, is not there as a result of a tax credit for movies, for Cardinals, for Springfield, for reactors, for whatever, you know, I don't know, for taxing authorities. If that money doesn't go into the general revenue because of a tax credit or something, then don't we, the people, still indirectly pay for it because we have to top it up? We have to top up the coffers?
I think you have questions about like fungibility, right?
No, that's the Chinese researcher. Not fungibility. No, you're right. Fungibility, and sort of like money doesn't go here, but it goes elsewhere.
But I'll remind you that, I mean, you've seen the biggest cuts to your taxes, state taxes.
Yeah.
You know, in the last 10 years, we've had rollbacks of the income tax. They eliminated the capital gains tax. So on whole, like you're still paying less than you ever had.
Right.
And it's not like because of the stadium thing, you're suddenly going to be paying more.
And remember, John, that Tom Kruckmeyer, who was with us yesterday, said that we have a low tax burden anyway, right? Wasn't it Tom that said that? We have a very low tax burden relative to the other states. We already do.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why there's
potholes. And he
potholes
also
at
talked
Grindstone
about
and
declining
63.
state revenues coming in, too. So, that factors in.
Yeah, but I
Lawmakers
don't
talked
know.
about during the regular session.
He didn't want to acknowledge the Laffer curve. I think it's true. If you have the right tax environment and maybe more importantly, the right regulatory environment, I think that's the secret sauce for getting business in, which brings in commerce, which brings in employment, which does raise revenues
And it's
in total.
And in some ways, it's about like aligning your policies with your belief system such that you send a message.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily just like giving a break to A or B. It's sending a message to large companies, to sports teams, to whoever you want to talk about, that Missouri is open for business and that we're a good place to live, work, and play. And part of that is aligning your policies with that. I mean, if suddenly you say, "Oh, nope, Chiefs, we're not going to help you out," and we've done, the Chiefs are on the table now, but we've done it for car manufacturers, we've done it for other businesses. We have the entire Department of Economic Development who's there to help bring in new businesses, and there's lots of times there's some sort of combination of state and local incentives to try to locate these projects here. The fact of the matter is, many of these businesses, they need to do what they need to do, and they're looking for what state to go to. And so, you think about the states that are doing really well. Do you really know the intricacies of their policies, of Florida, of Tennessee, of Texas? But they have put a policy package together that has, increased their population such that they're always pointed to as like, hey, you're looking for a great low tax pro-business state, Florida, Nashville, all of these places. And a lot of that, is because they have zero income tax, right? But they have other things as well. So I think, making sure that when we say Missouri is a pro-business state and we want you to come here, that our policies support that and align with that is important.
I agree. I think so producer Brian Hansen, star of the Gary Nolan Show, came in during the break and he said, "Hey, Randy, what if you and I start a small business? Can we go and knock on the legislative doors and get a little tax credit?" And you know what the answer? They'd laugh. They would say, "Get out of here." Right? How many people you hire? And that's the problem. Look, how many people, my friend Chris Ann started the One Facial business over on Forum, right? Did she get a tax credit? She's got a nice little boutique there where they do the facial thing, whatever. I don't know. Did she get a tax? Do I get a tax break? I started a startup medical practice. Do I get a tax break? I'm not. There you go. Stephanie's going to go, "See, Randy, you're wondering what's in it for me." Well, look, if it's good for the Chiefs and it's good for this and it's good for that, why can't you get a tax break for your trolley company if you want to, start a trolley company in Springfield?
I think there are tons of opportunities for small business. Like
come on now.
There are.
Now, Stephanie.
Well, Missouri has a tax break for women-owned businesses, right, Steph?
Well, so I guess I need to transition.
There are others. And I regularly encourage people, and we try to get that information out there, whether you're talking to Ready in mid-Missouri, whether you're talking to, just the Department of Economic Development. If you can describe to them what your business is, oftentimes there's an overlooked program that you can do, whether you're trying to relocate your employees, whether it's a workforce thing.
Program.
Make sure you get educated, because you might be missing out on opportunities that you're just not aware about.
Program schmogram. Programs take administrators. Administrators drain the coffers. Just make it blanket. Any business can get an automatic 5% tax credit retroactively if you're successful after 2 years. I'm just throwing it out there. You know what I mean? Okay, you take some risk, we're going to pay you back. You make a commitment to your community, you're going to get something. Why do I have to apply and dot every I and cross every T? I don't have the money that the Kansas City Chiefs do, or, to hire a bunch of lawyers. Do you know what Stephanie charges? Oh, my God.
You don't know what I
know.
And she's worth every penny.
Every penny of it. Just ask her. No, okay, going back to the tax credit thing, seriously. Remember the boats and moats, right? Boats and moats and gambling casino gambling, was going to put money into the education fund. And a lot of people said, well, yeah, that just means they won't take and give to schools out of the general fund what the boats and moats funds are doing. So you're not really having a net gain there, right?
And we're back to like your fungibility argument. I don't think you can make that same argument with tax credits and the way that the stadium's money is going to be used. And again, my understanding is the clawback is still in there. So if they were to ever leave, we are able to recoup that money back. But again, this is why we're going to have Senator Gregory on tomorrow, because he will be able to explain all of the various details.
Our listeners they are so wise. They summarize in one concise statement. The problem with our listeners, dear listener, is it's so concise that there'd be silence on the radio if we just did it in this manner. Rick says, all these programs are why we have ended up with Doge. Bam. Close the door. Case closed. I don't like one program for this group. One, if if it's sunny in Tucson and you're a woman and you happen to have long hair, but only the extensions that are this long, then you can get a break. Come on. We're all Missourians. What is this favorite nation status? Just show me you're starting a business, show me your investment, and we'll give you a tax credit. Whether you're the rich guy in Kansas City or whether you're John Marsh who wants to start a landscaping company, whatever. I don't know.
What's thanks. Too much work.
Yeah, and no, just because you start a business doesn't mean you need a tax credit. That'd be a huge waste of money because tons of stupid people without any skills start businesses and they fail. I mean, the data is like, 80% of small businesses fail in the first 3 years. I mean, there's got to be some sort of due diligence. If you're just giving people money to start their own, I don't think that's the right way to go about it either.
Well, Missouri does have that women's tax credit and the minority tax credit on the books, and they're like 15 or 20% if you qualify.
Well, you just made an argument against tax credits at all.
What?
Why have tax credits for a promise of a business that may or may not do something? And within 5 or 10 years... I
think the Chiefs have proven themselves.
Well, but how many businesses play local communities or states like a violin? They get their tax credit, and when the tax credits are expiring, bye-bye.
I mean...
and they hold you hostage.
You're talking to someone who never touched a PPP loan, who never got any COVID money, whose business, who most of my days are 12 hours a day.
Keith says you guys and gals are delusional. Missouri takes $22 billion in federal money every year, 1/3 of our state budget. We need to stop taxing the people for politicians' wet dreams. Let the billionaires pay their own stadiums. Enough with TIFs. Advocate like Republicans, please. Well, and then Travis really comes down with the truth. Randy, Home Depot sells asphalt repair, 50-pound dry mix. Okay, I'll go out and repair some potholes. We'll be back and make Missouri great again, healthy again in a moment.
You're listening to Wake Up Missouri.
So, want to talk in the Make Missouri Healthy Again segment today about your telomeres. You know what your telomeres are?
No.
It's a family show. We can
Does
talk
it make
about.
you feel good about yourself to use big words?
No, I just want to talk about. They're very important. So, you know what chromosomes look like? They look like little bow ties, right? You've seen pictures of chromosomes.
Sure.
Yeah. Everyone know. Drake, you know what chromosome looks like? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, on the end of our chromosomes, okay, take a look. For those of you who have shoelaces, take a look at your shoelaces, and you know the little waxy part, the little, like it looks like you took Scotch tape, put it at the end of that, your shoelace. There's a name for that. Stephanie or John Marsh would know that. I don't know that name, but it's some name for that. That is like the telomere on your chromosomes. And as we age, think of it as protective end caps. So just like your chromosomes don't, your shoelaces don't all unravel because it's got that little cap on it. Your chromosomes are protected by telomeres. Okay, make sense? All right. Got me? Are you with me? Drake, you with me? Drake's looking at his phone. He could give a darn about this. Okay.
I know what it is.
So I know. You just think. So researchers have found, this is a really interesting study. Telomere length is thought to be related to longevity. So as we age, our telomeres and things that we do to ourselves, like inflammatory influences, our nutrition, our exercise, or lack of it, will shorten your telomere. And you can actually get studies that show if you have John is thinking about adult jokes.
It's too easy.
Yeah.
Too easy.
Okay. You don't want to shorten your telomeres. Having a small telomere is not good, John.
Very true.
Next time we have a beer, we'll have some more guy jokes about
My
short
son
telomeres.
reminded me, I've got him by about a half inch. He's 13 right now, and he's like, Mom, you're only getting shorter. He's like, I'm getting taller, you're getting shorter. And I was like, that is so rude.
But you want to have long telomeres. You do. You want to protect your telomeres because they protect your chromosomes. And it turns out that researchers found that just 3 years of supplementation with vitamin D in 50 and 55-year-old people showed that there was significant protection of telomere shortening by taking vitamin D supplements. About
I think
2,000
vitamin
units a
D
day.
is like a magical.
Well, vitamin D is underappreciated, and as we do fairly routine testing, even though the powers that be think that vitamin D testing is a medically unnecessary thing, but they don't know what they're doing a lot of times, these powers that be, because they're thinking about bean counting rather than your health. I'll say it. So it turned out in a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial of vitamin D, 2,000 units a day, and omega-3s, by the way, that tracked females age 55 years and men age 50 years and older, they looked at this and they turned out that they reduced shortening over 4 years, preventing the equivalent of nearly 3 years of aging by just taking vitamin D. Now, I'm not prescribing vitamin D for you all because too much of a good thing is not good. So if you're getting a lot of sun and you're taking vitamin D, you may be over vitamin D-ing it, and that's not good either. So talk with your doctor about vitamin D, what he or she thinks about that. But this is remarkable stuff. I mean, this is the kind of research, well-done research. Now, it hasn't been proven that if we take these people and follow them until they die, and some take 2,000 units and some don't, are they going to live longer? We're just saying an indirect evidence of longevity seems to be improved by taking vitamin D3. So talk to your doc about it. That's making Missouri healthy again today. That way you can live to see when the stadium is empty and the Kansas City team goes to Indianapolis.
Randy, yikes.
Just kidding.
Thank goodness tomorrow's a feel-good Friday.
I'm just kidding you, Stephanie. I like to poke the bear. We'll be back with John's segment. No, we won't. We'll be back in just a moment.
I think just local news is like the most
100 products that we're completely reliant on some other entity to make for us. Where are they made, and how hard would it be to onshore that manufacturing? I asked that explicit question, and the answer was, we don't know. Nobody in the prior government had actually asked these very fundamental questions. And so what is so crazy about the hyper-globalized era is that you had these basic questions about the brittleness of our supply chains that were completely uninvestigated by the very people who supported globalizing those supply chains. We were actually governed by complete morons, and we didn't even realize it until the Trump administration started to get underneath the hood of our government.
That was J.D. Vance at a forum talking about how I think it has a lot to do with not only the philosophy of this administration, but the tariffs in terms of enacting that philosophy, right? It's like, look, you can talk about protectionism and whether it's good or bad and whether we should be more or less selective and about manipulation of markets. But I think, John, Stephanie, don't you agree that at least on the level of what he calls the brittle supply chains, the things that are essential, our pharmaceuticals, our healthcare products. I mean, you could think of a lot of other things, the rare earth minerals and the things we need for our infrastructure to keep this country going. There's not a better argument than that. Forget it. Aside from the economic and protecting this or that job, that is an important discussion. And it frightened me that the people that were watching this globalization happen, they didn't even identify, like, well, what are those things that we really need to have? We can't depend on China to provide it for us.
Yeah, I mean, that was the whole part of Attorney General Bailey's suit against China, was that they unleashed the virus on us and then they withheld all of the PPE and everything else that we were needing. So I think it's a real threat.
Yeah. And I mean, it's one thing to say, okay, we know that we're dependent on this and that and it's important, but we've just decided to throw the dice and hope that they're nice to us when we need that stuff. It sounds from what he said, if you take that at face value, the people hadn't even, I would think if you're in the administration, you must say, look, the first thing I want to know is let's identify the critical industries, the critical supply chains, okay?
So I think, again,
sounds like they didn't even know that.
Right. And so I think, again, you're making my point for why we should invest in AI infrastructure in the United States, because that is a huge threat. If AI is going to power all of our devices and everything that we do, and China beats us to it and basically gets the backbone, it's a huge threat. Randy's not ready to admit that he's wrong on AI. No, I never did
disagree with you on that. That's not, in fact, you're making my point. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're just joining us, we've had an interesting debate about where is it the people's role, regular taxpayers' role, through its representative government to support various industries and the entities within those industries. And specifically, we're talking about the sports authority in Kansas City, the sports stadiums. And my argument was, well, is that really a critical role of the government to support? Is the sporting enterprise a critical role that government? You could say it's nice and we like it and it creates jobs, but I just keep asking the basic fundamental question: is that important? Is it as important as roads, electricity, broadband access? I'll give you your AI. I mean, if you're going to support why are we supporting movies, for instance? Why are there tax credits for movies?
Ask the Freedom Caucus.
What is the word does that have to do? So anyway, I think this is interesting, and I think that's one thing I really appreciate about J.D. Vance, the way he communicates these things. There's not a stronger candidate to carry on with this mission in 2028 than J.D. Vance.
Well, I take away on JD's talk about this, a lot of that's good. It's great, especially like you brought up the whole angle with PPE during the pandemic where the Chinese had the market cornered on KN95 masks and all that, and the emergency services people just couldn't lay their hands on them. But the flip side of it is they start making those masks in the U.S. and you got to pay U.S. minimum wage and all, and the prices go up and up and up and up on those medical companies that are making the big bucks because that stuff's all made offshore.
I got an answer to that. There shouldn't be a minimum wage, right? I mean, What is this protecting unions? Where is it in the government's interest, the people's interest? And I love you union people. This is a philosophical argument here. Great union people. But if you're great, you don't need the government to make the good or the service that you provide. You don't need their help. People will come because there is a thing called the free market, and there's a thing called supply and demand and value propositions, right? You don't need the government if you make it to protect your union job. The government has no role in any protection of any job. A safe workplace, I think the government has some role in that. But not protecting what you get paid for what you do. That only, I think, leads to a slide towards mediocrity, right? No?
Yes. I'm with you. We agree.
But that's why things are so expensive in Merca. Because there's all these stupid rules protecting people's jobs when your work and your output should protect your job, period. Right? That's what should do it. Not because you're a woman or you're an Indian or you're black or you're gay or you're not or whatever. Who cares? It just show me what you do. And the government should have no role in it.
Yeah, and I mean, all you have to do to figure that out is go to a state like California. I mean, now our minimum wage isn't going to be that far off of California, but I hadn't been there in many years, and I went and visited, and I went to go have a drink and at the hotel bar, and I got a little notice on the bottom of my receipt that on top of my $20 drink, you know, I need a tip, of course, because that's what they expect. And then also there was some sort of surcharge and it was a pretty significant percentage, if I'm remembering correctly. I think it was 15 to 18%. And they said, you'll also be automatically charged this surcharge to help us offset the cost of the minimum wage. And I thought, what?
Yeah, yeah.
Drive you to drink.
Right, and that's the whole thing. What's going to happen when if this no tax on tip thing comes through? Think about how that's going to just...
I think since the day he announced that, I think that's horrible policy.
Now, all the people out there that have people working in the industry are going to have their little voodoo Stephanie doll sticking pins to it. Stephanie doesn't want us to get taxed on her.
Well, back in the day when it was more of a cash economy, you know, people didn't declare tips a lot of the times, and they were tax-free by that until you got caught.
You just made the best argument for abolishing the income tax yesterday. Why do we get punished for our income? User tax. You can account for it. You know where it's collected. You know what for it's collected. And you don't punish people for productivity. The income tax was the biggest travesty ever foisted on the American public. 1913, worst year in this country's history, perhaps, maybe. Drake?
Yeah, I mean, one of the big things with unions my take is that whenever we talk about deregulating and all that, we never talk about unions. I mean, we had those ports that the union workers were like, oh, we're not going to automate it because it's going to take away our jobs. I think if we're going to create more jobs in a more flourishing economy, we need to take away regulation, but we also need to limit these unions and their powers to our government. I think they're on the same level, and not a lot of people talk about that.
No, you're absolutely right. Look, in the medical field, I think a lot of jobs are going to go away. They're already using computer-aided reading of mammograms and pap smears and other things. I mean, and most radiologists and pathologists will say, hey, we really appreciate that. You still need to have someone there, you know, looking over the shoulder of AI.
Yeah, almost every time I've been to the doctor here recently, it like when I get the little portal notice, it says like this report has been like assisted by computer-aided technology. It has like a little disclaimer on it. That
Did they tell you that your visit was being recorded?
No. I think like I told you, I just went and had my annual mammogram, and it says like
the
scans. It says like
not the doctor visit.
And clearly it's been checked off on the doctor, but it says like, hey, we used computers to look at this or whatever.
So I think a lot of jobs in the medical field are going to go away. I mean, there will be places where people can just go and look at Grok and do whatever, and if we liberalize, they write their own prescription and they can check that against what they have. I think the world will change. It's okay, fine by me. I mean, you know, I'm tired of the government deciding who's got authority and who doesn't. I mean, you know, I just think that we need to, when we give the government too much power and too much like gifting power, that's especially where it gets into trouble. But we'll have to see. Chris says, Randy, you're not considered the roles assigned to nations under the umbrella of globalism. We're suffering a comfort crisis. As long as we're comfortable, we don't care. Wow. What does the minimum wage have to do with unions, Alan says? The minimum wage has a lot to do with the same mentality. That's the government establishing conditions of employment. That's why it's a related field. They're not directly related. But what's a prevailing wage? What's that all about? Because there's some wage in St. Louis and I build a thing funded somewhere else, I've got to pay the wage for St. Louis. And it's complicated. Life's too complicated.
It is, but
be simple.
Bringing it back to, where people are, you don't want a minimum wage, but the fact of the matter is they just put it on the ballot and it passed by a lot. People are like, yes, right? We just had that vote in November. And when the legislature went back to revise it, they didn't touch the new minimum wage. They touched the sick leave part of it, but they left the minimum wage in.
Well,
so
I'm glad I'd rather have these kind of decisions being made at the state level rather than the federal level. Can we agree on that? At least let's bring it all back to the state level, except for national defense and borders. And
some people who've listened to the last 4 weeks of the legislative session might disagree with you.
Yeah, but you know what? It's more nimble at the state level. It really is.
It is.
It's more nimble, and I like that. That's good.
Well, you talk about prevailing wage. That's on public works projects too. That's what that applies to. I think what's the $75,000 figure that goes along with those on bridges and roads and public buildings.
But see, that's where the government's getting in bed with unions, right? Just because it's a publicly funded project, now we have to pay a union wage. Why can't we go out and get a private non-union, let them compete against a union place and say, hey, we as union people produce better quality because we have a journeyman and an apprenticeship program and their certification, and look at our buildings stand taller and longer than other buildings. Do it on merit, right? Not because you have a union card. And I think most unions probably do have excellent output. I'm not arguing that. But why all the noise and the middleman and all the distraction and all that, John, what's coming up?
What's behind this fight? Blame it on the barking spiders.
Okay, we'll be back in a minute with that.
This
last month at CNL Plasma in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, after one of them let it rip while standing in line. Chaz Pearson was standing behind an elderly guy who dropped the bomb, then apologized, but, and this really stinks, Pearson allegedly clobbered the guy in the head, and when the man's son stepped in, he punched him out too. Pearson faces charges now of simple assault, harassment, and disorderly conduct, which prompted a staffer of the blood bank to remark, maybe we should follow the lead of the French and have a dedicated restroom for gas passers. We could call it the Toot Sweet. And now you know the rest of that story.
So where did this happen? This happened in the restroom?
Right in the line at the blood bank in Wilkes-Barre.
Oh, at the blood bank. Okay, yeah.
So maybe he was just nervous, and having to give blood. And all
I mean, you can get lightheaded giving blood alone. So, I mean, that, it's bad enough if you go in sort of lightheaded because of the flatus experience,
There you go.
So you don't want to prep yourself for passing out or passing gas. Mm.
Tell the technician to pull my finger.
Can we all admit there's nothing worse than suddenly having that urge because you ate the prescribed RFK vegetable-rich diet, and you have to pass gas the minute you're in the elevator on a long elevator ride, and all of a sudden that's a terrible feeling, You don't want to do that to other people.
I don't know. Women don't have that problem, Randy.
Oh, women being the little rotes flowers that they are. Hey, you, my little rotes flower. No stinky here.
Have you seen the video from the plane? The worst is the plane because it starts to smell. And there's that viral video and it keeps popping up. And there's just it's an Indian man and he's yelling and he's like, who's ever farting on this plane? Would you please stop? And you can always tell if you're sitting too close to somebody and you're like, gross.
That's it. And Fart's favorite app is AirDrop, right?
And you're just.
And this is part of my problem with people scarfing down hot food.
Yeah.
I went to fly out of Colombia one time and I saw these, and it was not it didn't look like, teenage weed smokers or something. And these people were hossing down a bunch of Taco Bell minutes before we were getting on the plane. And I'm like, this seems like bad choices for you, bad choices for me. I don't want to be on the plane with the people who just ate a whole lot of Taco Bell. No, thank you.
Well, look at the bright side. You've been, Randy, only a couple decades ago on the size of commuter aircraft. It could be a lot worse.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Yeah. When you just had the one row and one side and two on the other.
And I don't know what's worse. I guess that pit bull that I had to sit next to, that one. I had to worry about dog farts.
No,
too,
you can blame it on the dog. Always good in a social situation to have a dog nearby. Oh, come on, Fido. What in the world? We've just changed the dog's dog food, when you're the guilty one, but you blame it on the dog. It's nice to have a dog to blame it on, too.
Texter Tim just remarks, SBD, silent but deadly.
Oh, my gosh.
Now, the truth is, though, if you're eating a healthy diet and taking care of your microbiome very well, you're going to have a certain amount of that. And there's an adjustment period, especially if you adopt that kind of a diet with more and more vegetable matter and fiber.
You're not helping yourself, convincing us all to eat kale.
No, but
vegans and beans, ladies and gentlemen.
It's a signal of healthy biome, so it's good.
If you don't have one, my kids, they've had it for years, and every once in a while they dig it out of their toy box and they bring it around, and it's like the Minions fart gun, and you just press the button and it makes the noises. And
every time the little kids are around, I have a machine.
It's hilarious.
I have a remote button, and the machine gets planted in strategic places around the house.
You have a fart machine in your...
Of course. Doesn't every dad and grandpa have a machine like that? Of course.
No.
Oh, yeah, put it...
But you can...
Had the rubber fart thing back in the day,
the whoopee
right?
cushion.
Oh, I put it under the sofa cushions and just, I'm in the other room.
That's
I've hit
ridiculous.
the button. It's great.
Alexa will do that for you now, too. You can ask her, and she'll play all sorts of weird stuff.
Oh, it's fun. No, it's fun. Natural body function, no different than coughing or sneezing. Hey, let's talk a little, about the Trump-Putin call the other day, Ukrainian drones, national security, and does China have a kill switch for America? Steve Bucci, security expert, at 8:08. Of Wake Up Missouri as we continue to watch things going on in the state legislature. Senate has done its job passing the stadium funding bill, a skinny down capital projects bill. Those now goes over to the House. We'll see what happens with that. The Senate up in D.C. doing its job as well, trying to figure if that big, beautiful budget bill is going to roll out or not. Joining us now, Steve Bucci. He's our national security expert, cybersecurity expert, and a special forces veteran. Served this country well and ably in so many roles. And Steve, thinking about the big, beautiful budget bill, one of the big components in that is defense spending and really, getting that up to speed because it really had languished under previous administration, Obama and Biden. Fair to say?
It's absolutely fair to say. Under President Obama, it was really badly underfunded. President Trump in his first administration tried to rectify that and made some progress at rectifying it, but obviously didn't turn it all the way around. And then the last 4 years, it's really just been allowed to focus primarily on all of their DEI and woke stuff and very little on readiness. So this is important. And, I know we're trying to save money, but boy, you don't want to be foolish as to where you save that money. And defense is not the place you want to come up short, at least not again. So this bill hopefully will work on fixing some of that.
Well, and we do want to talk about some of the cyber threats that potentially, according to one article about Chinese having a kill switch on us and sort of the changing face of warfare, whether that's true or not. I think we've talked a little bit about it before, but we saw maybe a glimpse of that recently with the Ukrainian drone strikes. The drones were on semi-flatbeds in little tiny homes, and then they were unleashed and destroyed a bunch of Russian bombers. And now in the Trump-Putin call yesterday, apparently Putin said, I'm going to retaliate. There was no talk of peace. Do you think that chances for peace are really eroding day by day?
With regard to Ukraine and Russia, look, Putin is not a serious negotiating partner. It's kind of like negotiating with the Iranians. They're not serious about what we're talking about. They're not willing to give any ground at all. So while I applaud President Trump's attempts to use negotiations, because negotiations, frankly, it's superior than going out and killing people, but it doesn't always work. And in this case, as we've seen, warfare is getting more and more innovative. And so even folks that don't have the wherewithal to do big, I'll say old-fashioned style warfare, they can do it in different ways, and it can be less expensive than building a big modern army, but just as deadly.
Colonel Stephen Bucci, national security expert with Heritage, joins us here on Wake Up Missouri.
Colonel, talk to us about the story Fox News was doing, talking about undocumented communications devices apparently hidden in Chinese-made solar panels.
The Chinese are really good at embedding cyber-related capabilities into everything. The solar panels, that's a big thing. Everybody wants that. They think it's going to save money. It's going to help the environment. And almost all of the key electrical components for it are made in China. And the Chinese leave little gifts along with the regular things they send so that they can take advantage of us because they know we're dependent on that stuff. So, those solar panels, depending on where they come from, there might be little gifts like that where they can gather information. I'll give you a quick example. It sounds trite, but a few years ago, a thing that was very popular to buy were digital picture frames. They were all over the place. My wife wanted one for Christmas, and I had to tell her, sweetheart, I can't get it for you. And she said, why not? And I said, I can't tell you. It's classified, which makes her very upset when you say that.
Oh, wow.
It's no longer classified, so I can talk about it, but pretty much every digital picture frame that was coming into America was made in China. And they were all preloaded with malware that as soon as you hooked it up to your computer to download your photos, it would upload the malware into your computer and would immediately begin sending everything that was on your computer back to China.
What?
What?
Now,
I have one of those still in the box that I haven't loaded.
Well, throw it in the trash.
So I need to throw it away?
Load it.
Oh, my God.
Yes, you do. So, you think about that. What was the target of that Intel collection program? People that buy inexpensive electronics. It wasn't something targeted on the government. It was targeted to the widest possible audience. Wow. And, the Chinese have the personnel to comb through all that stuff and see if anything of value to them was collected. But they do things like that. And that level of phishing expedition is very difficult to stop. And even if they throw away 98% of it, but 2% of it is something good, 2% of a really, really big amount of information can get them some pretty cool stuff. So the Chinese are just relentless in their collection capabilities and their desire to put things in place that will hurt other people. But it's just very difficult to stop.
Now, over the weekend, I had time to dig into this investigative report put out by the Free Press called How Qatar Bought America. And the long and the short of it is they said they have developed a sophisticated apparatus to embed itself into American society by investing in politicians, universities, newsrooms, think tanks, lobbying firms, and corporations at an unprecedented scale. Are they our friend or our foe? And should we be worried about how much money they are spending and have spent in America?
Look, we need to vet everybody that tries to, get all around our stuff, inside all of our capabilities, even if they are our friends. We have allies that send spies into our country. We send spies into other people's countries, including our allies and friends. But there are some actors out there that are a little more malevolent than others. If the Israelis spy on us, they're not going to take that information and sell it to some other country that's going to hurt America because we're friends of the Israelis. They need us. They want to know what we're doing, but they're not going to sell it to the Chinese or to the Russians. However, the Chinese or the Russians or the Iranians or some of the other countries around the world, them trying to essentially buy our universities to influence our political decisions, that's not them being friendly. That's their adversaries. And we have to be more cautious about it. We cannot be naive. Every foreign student that comes into America is not an enemy agent, but a lot of them are. So we have to watch that. Every foreign professor that comes to a university isn't here because they want the opportunity to live in, nice, idyllic, little towns where universities sit and teach our students. They're here to find out what we're doing for research and to influence those American students. We have for a long time been very naive about those processes, thinking that there's nothing bad that can happen from them. And if you look at America's campuses, if you look at the take that foreign intel services come up with those folks, it is a problem. And it's something we just need to be much more aware of and much more willing to dig into and not just accept because we've always done it that way.
Wow. That's frightening. I mean, it's funny, Steve, how I think in the era of the Trump lawfare that we witnessed and the Russia hoax and so many other things that led to the loss of trust in our institutions, I think a lot of Americans have become maybe a little bit trusting of the kind of things that we know our institutions are saying, and you're saying here. But how do we know what to believe anymore, right? If people come out now from a credible Trump-led, Hegseth-led DOD, a CIA led by Trump officials, at what point will those words now be taken more seriously, and will Americans start to endorse more rigorous posture as far as our cybersecurity, our kinetic defense security? What's it going to take to recruiting's up, so maybe we're already seeing that happen. But do you think that is in progress as we see more trust in those intelligence and other operations?
Well, I'd like to hope so. I think at least for a little more than half the country, that trust is up. For the other half of the country, they think Trump's actually the enemy, and not these other countries. And in some cases, we see people from the other side of the political spectrum literally defending those enemies and those folks when there's an enormous amount of evidence to show that they are nefarious in their intent. But they're like, oh, no, you can't throw him out of the country. He deserves to stay here. He hasn't done anything wrong. Those folks are perfectly fine. We need to keep doing those programs, and you and I need to keep paying to send those students to college. I mean, my wife was aghast when she saw the news report that said literally 25% of Harvard's student body are foreign students, some of which who are paid for by their own countries, but many of which are subsidized by your tax dollars. That's crazy. We do not have a responsibility to educate the whole world, especially not the upper levels of the rest of the world that work for their governments. Well, and anybody who thinks they're not working for their governments is the epitome of naivete.
Well, immigrants, whether here temporarily or permanent ambition, used to assimilate. That used to be their desire. No longer the case, and we need to worry about that for sure. Thanks for helping us unpack a very complex defense world, Steve. Really appreciate you.
It's my pleasure. It's always enjoyable to be on the show.
Talk to you later. All right, there he is. So it's not paranoia. It's not conspiracy theory when your government, through your Defense Department, your intel, is telling you China is a threat. Listen to it.
John, where's your hard hat?
In the other room. I'll go get it.
Okay. All righty. Enough with that aluminum foil hat. Okay. Stephanie back with Market Report in a minute.
You're listening.
Eddie, what's happening?
It was a mixed bag yesterday as the markets closed. NASDAQ up 0.32%, S&P basically even, Dow down 0.22%. Driving the gainers were materials and communication services. Driving the losers, energy and utilities. As we look at the futures this morning, they are all in the green, just barely. But I picked this story, Randy. There's a new announcement from Uber and Lyft, and it allows me to revisit one of my favorite SNL sketches ever because, you know, we know sometimes some people have trouble with technology, and maybe one particular type of person. So
you talking to me?
Let's hear.
The new Amazon Echo has everyone asking Alexa for help.
Alexa, what time is it? What the hell is wrong with this blasted thing? Amanda!
But the latest technology isn't always easy to use for people of a certain age.
These kids done bought me a busted machine again. Odessa!
That's why Amazon partnered with AARP to present the new Amazon Echo Silver, the only smart speaker device designed specifically to be used by the greatest generation. It's super loud and responds to any name even remotely close to Alexa, so they can find out the weather.
Allegra, what is the weather outside?
It is 74 degrees and sunny.
Huh?
It is 74 degrees and sunny.
Where?
Outside.
What about it?
The temperature outside is 74 degrees and sunny.
I don't know about that.
The latest in sports.
Clarissa, how many did old Satchel strike out last night?
Satchel Paige died in 1982.
How many he get?
So that's, I mean, SNL's gotten less funny, but that will always give me the giggles. And so we talked about, you know, like sometimes technology's, you know, difficult for folks to use. Uber and Lyft have made an announcement that they said we understand. And part of our thing for our seniors is transportation, to whether it be to healthcare, to, you know, community things, whatever. They need this access. And we've noticed that many times they have difficulty using our app. So Lyft has introduced just Lyft Silver. And
what do? Talk to your phone?
No, it is described as a simplified version of the app. It offers larger text,
oh, God,
fewer buttons, and easy to navigate screens. And so you can get in the app and click over in the settings and say you want the simple or the boomer version of the app. And it's supposed to be easier for folks to use. And I think
flip
that's
phone
good.
friendly, right?
John, should we even rebut that remark or not? I think we'll just let it pass.
But they said transportation is truly one of the biggest barriers to independence as we age. So whether you're accessing healthy food at the grocery store, picking up a prescription, going to the doctor's office, they want to be able to make sure everyone can use these apps. I don't think that's a bad thing.
It's a great business model for them.
Smart.
Right? So,
especially for folks, you know, a lot of those trips might be to the doctor's office and they can fine tune, you know, how they deal with people who have issues.
Well, and a lot of folks that depend on relatives, sometimes younger working kids, you know, to do their transport, they feel bad about that. It's like, oh man, my daughter or son's got to take off work again, you know, and this may prevent that. So they feel
provide
good
more
about
independence.
Yeah.
I like it. And it wouldn't be, I mean, they've introduced before like Uber Teen for like parents who want to allow, and so it's not like something out of the blue. They've targeted various age categories before.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Uber Silver. Oh, my goodness.
I see a side hustle for Drake.
Drake only needs to be an NFL quarterback to make sure he'll get his girl.
Has America been fair to Donald
Hey, we're back on Wake Up Missouri. You know, we continue to follow the saga of legislation in Missouri. And in case you're just joining us, the very busy Senate session that extended into the wee hours of the morning. Stadium funding bill, stadium, what do we call that, John? Marsh, what would you say? It's the stadium tax credit subsidy bill? I don't know.
You nailed it when you said stadium funding bill.
Expanded, that was one bill. And then, but that passed after, I guess, they passed sort of a partial HB 19, which was the bill on some capital projects, but also including the nuclear reactor, going from $25 million in support to $50 million in support for the nuclear reactor, medical reactor in Columbia, MU. More, I guess, what would you say? More support for victims of the tornadic weather and other, natural disasters, right?
Yeah. The governor, because the special session, the rules say he has to specifically map out everything the lawmakers are to take up. He provided them with 14 topics.
Yeah.
Just yesterday.
Right. So expanded that, and there's also some, I guess what I would say is a hedge in terms of excessive property tax assessments, and of course the taxes that go with those increased assessments, limiting, I think, for this year to no more than 5% in 2025 increase.
Yeah, annually.
And the other is it annually, or is it just for something about only in 2025? There was some provision there limited to this year, but bottom line is they're trying to offer some real property tax relief for people, and I think putting maybe a little bit of opportunity to oversee what the state tax commission tells assessors to do. And the letter I got, and many of you in Boone County, I don't know if this happened in Greene County or not, or in Cole County, but people were getting some pretty enhanced assessments, and it was by direction of the state tax commission.
And that was especially an issue on personal property taxes, where people on there were questioning, because we'd had the former Cole County assessor on with us, and he talked about he was getting a lot of questions from people because they said that a 1985 pickup truck that you used to run around on the farm with was assessed the same guy who had the 1985 pickup truck that he took to car shows.
Yeah, right.
And they were all being assessed at the same rate. People like, this isn't a show truck. This is an old beater we go to get the deer down by the by the back 40 with.
Gets beat up as it hits the cattle panel heading out to the range.
But the state tax commission had ruled and said, nope, we're going to use like-minded assessments for those vehicles.
The problem is like-minded. It's all indirect. There's a certain amount of, I think, inequality to that, really, or unfairness. That's another argument for user taxes. I mean, user taxes are where it's at. That's what the more successful states leverage a lot of their taxing on, is user tax, not income tax. Yeah, there's some property tax in there, but usually it's real estate tax, not personal property, right? Because you could argue that that's not a regressive tax. If you're someone that can afford to own 1,000 acres in land, or you own a development complex in St. Louis, Kansas City, Springfield, Columbia, Jefferson, okay, you probably can afford to pony up a little more tax. That's fine. I mean, if you're going to argue that, it's not the person. And then, of course, the question comes in sales tax. I mean, those can be regressive.
And then you talk about the potential for a flat tax. Yeah. And then, as Gary Nolan likes to talk about on the personal property tax side, about half the states don't even have personal property taxes anymore. And people who've relocated to Missouri from other states say, and they walk in and say, what do you mean I owe sales tax on my vehicle? I paid that when I bought the thing. They're like, oh, no, this is a yearly tax.
Yeah. Well, but while all of these subjects may be important, one thing that I lose sleep over at night is we got to find Drake a girl. He's on the search for a girl.
How about $1 million pitcher?
Well,
that'd be a good one to hook up with.
He's a young man, a strapping young guy in college, and supports the girls' softball team, and great, great scholar, great conservative, and I've got the answer for you, Drake. Just do what Josh Allen, the quarterback of your favorite team, the Buffalo Bills, do. Just become an NFL quarterback, and you can marry a Hollywood star. He married a Hollywood star the other day. That's all you got to do. Why don't you do a walk-on at Mizzou? Do a walk-on at Mizzou for quarterback.
Okay, a lot of things you just said were completely wrong. Haley Steinfeld got into Hollywood after she married. Well, she might have been in like some social media stuff and maybe some small movies, but she got her big hits after they started seeing each other. But
they've been married now. Now they're married. That's all
I don't know if they're married, but they're definitely engaged.
I saw they got married the other day.
They got married?
I
Okay.
follow these things, closely.
Well, also, the Buffalo Bills are not my favorite team. I do like Josh
I thought
Allen.
they were.
No, I love Josh Allen, though. He's one of my favorite quarterbacks.
Is it Philadelphia's your favorite team?
No, not even close.
No, okay.
But you say be more like him, and I just want to bring up some of his old tweets. Do you know anything about this?
Oh, no, I don't know about this.
Oh, right.
I just thought if you want to attract a girl, you just be an NFL quarterback. That's all you got to do.
2012.
Or Bill Belichick.
Or be a great coach.
I could do that.
And you could, at your age, you could marry, equivalently, you'd marry someone 3.
Or someone in the womb still. Who knows?
If we're comparing apples to oranges here.
Yeah, I don't get that. It's ridiculous. But he said, and I quote, "I don't think you N-words want a troubled son in 2012.
Ouch.
N-words trying to get at me.
Oh.
About to show up.
This is Josh Allen?
Josh Allen.
Oh, I'm sorry. Forget about that. Don't emulate Josh Allen.
About to show up these N-words at Pong.
Oh.
Gonna do it for his friends. He said, "Why are you so white? ? If it ain't white, it ain't right." And he said, "I hate LeBron." Those are his notable tweets from whenever he was in high school.
Well, I hate LeBron too, but only because he's a hypocrite when it comes to China. He denigrates America, but then he goes over and makes bank on China. That's why I don't like LeBron. Okay?
I agree, but I mean,
so how did he get? What do the black players on the Buffalo Bills think about that?
They love him. They love him. I mean, it's not.
He makes them a lot of money.
He's a good player. He shows and does what he does great. And
so does that mean they have a thick skin?
Yes.
I mean, that's good. Good for them. Good for those African American players, right? They're not going to let that bother them.
And I think the big thing with African American players or anything like that, I mean, you have to. Whenever you see like the racial comments or anything, if it's from a fan who's sitting on their butts on their couch doing nothing, I feel like that hurts a little bit more than like a MVP winning quarterback. And but I'll definitely walk on. Eli Drinkwitz, give me a call. I'll become the best quarterback you've ever seen if it means I can get some girls, right?
Oh, man.
Yeah, what's the minimum walk-on for the NFL right now? It's like $800K, isn't it?
Well, I think aren't they now cutting contracts like in the Jerry Maguire? If I was Jerry Maguire these days, I'd say, look, no, well, I'd say like like NIL guy, I want you to pay me like $25 a game and the rest is a tip. And then you don't get taxed on it. How's that sound?
That's good. That'd be good.
I'd say
you could pass the tip jar through the stands when there's 80,000 people in attendance. So everybody throw in $1, we're good.
Like the Sunday go to meeting, right? Pass the plate. Did you see this story out of Fox where a woman was declared dead by the coroner in the Czech Republic?
That was a weird one, wasn't it?
But then apparently she showed signs of life after paramedics and coroners both said she was dead. This is from the Czech Republic. An 88-year-old woman who was thought to be dead showed maybe it was rigor mortis or something. I don't know. I mean, maybe the husband told the emergency dispatch she didn't move, she didn't breathe. Paramedics arrived. They confirmed the woman's death, and the coroners were dispatched to the apartment. The coroner confirmed the woman's death, and undertakers were called to move the body into the coffin. See, there you go. They transferred to the coffin. When they were right there in the apartment by the hallway, they found out she was alive. So this happened like contemporaneously. Maybe that's a biblical story. Maybe, who knows? Miracles happen. Miracles happen.
Story there is, if you've got health issues, don't vacation in the Czech Republic, maybe.
Yeah, and don't let them put you in the coffin right outside the door. Have a little
Creepy,
interval.
like some Edgar Allan Poe story or something, isn't it?
Apparently there have been, sometime later, the medical phenomenon occurs. This is I hadn't heard of any, I do not know of any cases like this. The patient will begin to show signs of life and must continue to show these signs for more than a few seconds. Apparently the National Institutes of Health say there have been 74 confirmed cases in the last 50 years, 40 years. Isn't that wild? The Lazarus effect, it's called.
Wow, sounds like something out of the 1800s.
I had not seen. I'd heard of the Lazarus effect, but and we all know about the biblical story. I don't know. Miracles do happen. the Cardinals could win the division. Drake could get the girl. We'll
and to
have
put it
see.
all in perspective, right? We all remember what Jesus' first miracle was.
Yeah.
Changing water into wine.
Yeah. Well, he got that right off the bat, didn't he?
Did.
Jesus' priorities were declared early on. I'm waiting for that new version. Speaking of Jesus, I love the series The Chosen. Have you seen that?
I've seen some of those. Pretty good.
I really
Pretty well done.
I love the way they make it's such a relatable Jesus, and Jonathan Rumi's personal story on top of it really just makes it that much.
I saw the episode where he did the loaves and the fishes. It was pretty cool.
Wasn't that neat?
Yeah.
But I like the way he's got a sense of humor. He's more you can relate to him being the leader, obviously, of the brothers, and the way he sort of smiles at him when they go off and their faith gets weak, and he just sort of he gets it, he understands it, and he kids him about it. It's a wonderful rendition. I think for those who are unfaithed, but maybe because they think about this Jesus guy being some unapproachable godlike figure that's going to cast spells on me and look down upon me and condescend. That's not the Jesus in that. I think the 4th season is going to be coming out very soon. Or I think they already did some theater releases, but it'll be out on Amazon, I guess, eventually too. Anyway, hey, let's do.
No spoiler alert for how it ends?
I don't think we need that, don't we? I think we talked about that just a couple months ago, didn't we? 6 weeks ago, yeah. All right. So we're going to come back and do leftovers after this. 573-874-9390. And I have a nomination for a guy that needs to be enshrined maybe on Mount Rushmore alongside the presidents. And I'll tell you who he is. It won't be any surprise when we come back at 8:52. John, you have a leftover too?
We've got something.
Oh, he's got something. Hopefully no more barking spiders. If you missed that segment, check out the podcast later. We'll be back with more Wake Up Missouri in 4 minutes. Be back.
This is Wake Up Missouri.
Wake Up Missouri, 573-874-9390, the number. We had Tanya Heath, a friend of the show and former mayoral candidate, asked about a little reprise on what our guest at 8 o'clock, Steve Bucci, had to say. That was interesting new news. If you didn't hear it, we were talking about China's various assaults on us through cyber weaponry. And he talked about how he told his wife not to plug a digital picture frame, into her computer because those things were routinely loaded by the Chinese, who I guess must make 99% of them, with malware that then they could download everything on your computer. I had no clue. I have one still in a box. I'm embarrassed to say. We were given it by the kids a year or two ago, and I hadn't gotten around to doing it. And I thought, now do I do it or not? But anyway, that's what Steve said.
And now he said the same kind of thing with or potential undocumented listing devices inside your Chinese-made solar panels, you green folks out there.
Now, how come you didn't offer Steve the tinfoil hard hat? Because you trust in Steve.
Know. Don't poke bird kernels with a stick generally.
But
okay.
I know why. All right. Can we agree that Tom Homan is a one-man American institution?
Man, just
so
ask
many people.
him.
You know why the Biden administration released millions of people in the United States? No one ever talks about it. I'll talk about it. Why did they release people into the interior of the United States and put them, rather than put them into an ice bed? Why not put them in an empty ice bed at $127 a night rather than in a hotel room at $500 a night? They did it on purpose because when you put them in ice detention bed, they get a hearing in 35 days. Court records show 9 out of 10 people claim asylum, get order removal, they're gone. But if you release them and put them in a hotel room at $500 a night, their hearings could be 5, 7, 9 years if you pull out all appeals. And what are they hoping for then? That another Democrat administration is in power. They can award an amnesty to millions. This is about selling this country out for future political power. That's what it was. The law clearly says if you arrive at our border without proper documentation, you shall be detained. Not maybe, not think about it, shall. And that's what President Trump's doing. Catch and release is over.
I'm sorry, this guy is, he's a capital P patriot. And it's clear. The law says you shall be detained, not put in a hotel in New York City. What is it that, don't you think that the historians will look back at the Biden administration and it'll be probably one of the worst administrations in American history in terms of their obfuscation of the truth, their concealing of Biden's decline, the ongoing lawfare that they endorsed? I don't know. I love this guy, Tom Homan. How about you, John?
Yeah, and it's one of those deals, too, where they made the allegations that the Biden administration's approach to the immigrant population didn't only go against Trump 1, but also went against Barack Obama and the way he handled it.
He deported a ton of people. He really did. No, I don't think it's as... and, Stephen Miller came out the other day and said, your guys aren't deporting enough. They actually... They released a few ICE senior officials a week ago because they weren't doing it quick enough in terms of ICE detaining and then deporting the appropriate people. Anyway, I just think that Tom Homan, when the guy speaks, it's so crystal clear. He reads the clear letter of the law. Why didn't Biden do it? We're here to do it. Thank you. Next question. But he also ties it into political ambitions, and he's right. He said if you could keep these people circulating in the country for 7, 8, 9 years, the hope of the Biden administration and the Democrats is you'll have a Democrat in that can just give them amnesty, right? And give them citizenship. That's what they want.
And on the flip side of it, if they're not in detention, they vanish into the woodwork, becoming the part of the whole operation, and good luck tracking them down even to give them a deportation hearing.
What do you got, John, and your leftover?
Well, as we've reported, Steak and Shake in Jefferson City is closed as of this week. They closed on Monday. They've been there since 1987.
Wow.
If you've been to any of the Steak and Shakes in the St. Louis Metro lately, we have one word for you: kiosks.
Really?
They've gone completely away from table service, where you just go up and belly up to a kiosk. You can still go sit down and eat your food, and a lot of them are going away.
Yeah, might be a little bellwether of things to come. Well, I have a story about nature and Pride Month tomorrow out of Canada. on Feel Good Friday. We can feel good having fun with it. We hope you'll have fun today and join us tomorrow in Wake Up Missouri.